Om Swastiastu, Namaste, dear respected professors, distinguished speaker, colleagues, and participants. It is a great honor to part of this international seminar. I am Professor Kadek Surpi Ayadharma. I am a lecturer, researcher, and author from Bali, Indonesia. Together with my colleagues, Jero Jemiwi, I will present the finding of our research entitled From Temple to Cakra, Interpreting the Śiva-Buddha Legacy in Balinese Archaeology and its Contemporary Religious Implication. Through this presentation, we propose that Śiva-Buddha relationship in Bali should be understood not simply as syncretism, but as a layered process of religious transformation involving sacred space, ritual institution, and embodied spirituality. The central problem is epistemological rather than empirical. Archaeological and textual sources already demonstrate a stable Śiva-Buddha co-presence. However, syncretism assumes doctrinal fusion, parallelism cannot explain interconnected practice, and coalition overstate political interests. None of these categories adequately explain why symbolic distinction persists while ritual relations remain closely connected. The evidence therefore requires all process-oriented analytical framework. The study shifts the question from classification to operation. Instead of asking whether the site is Hindu or Buddhist, it asks how space, object, institution, and embodied practice organize Śiva-Buddha relation. The objective is not to deny theological differences, but to explain how those differences were repositioned within a shared religious ecology. Transformation in this sense consents to change a relational mode rather than a loss of identity. Research design. The study adopts a qualitative and interpretative design. It integrates material evidence, architecture, spatial organization, iconography, and ritual landscape. With inscription, royal edict, and religious formulas such as Shaiva Sugata. These sources are interpreted through material religion, sacred space theory, and critical historiography. Analytical validity is strengthened through contextual reading and cross-source triangulation, focusing on convergence, tension, and divergence across the evidence. The material evidence shows structure cooperation rather than visual or doctrinal fusion. Shaiva image, linga yoni, stupas, and bodhisattva figure retain their respective symbolic convention. Architecture nevertheless accommodates this element within a shared sacred domain. This indicates that difference was not eliminated, it was materially regulated. What changed was therefore not theological identity, but the spatial position, ritual function, and social operation of its tradition. Now my colleague Jero Jemiwi will continue the presentation.
Thank you very much, Prof. Surya. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, allow me to continue the slide presentation. Now we are talking about the sacred space as relational apparatus. The sacred space should be understood as an active apparatus rather than just a passive container. Cosmological orientation connects the site to a broader sacred order. Symbolic zoning preserves differentiation without exclusion, and ritual circulation enables layered form of participation. Together, this spatial mechanism stabilize internal plurality, and the Balinese case demonstrates that religious diversity can be sustained when relationships are organized through material, cosmological, and institutional structures. This spatial logic provides the basis of the temple to chakra model. Please continue the next slide. In this slide, we can see the temple chakra dialectic. The movement from temple to chakra is dialectical, not linear. The temple represents materially bounded transformation through architecture, inscriptions, and institutions. And the chakra represents more flexible transformation through devotion, meditation, and the sacred body. Interiorization doesn't replace material space. It extends its cosmological logic into embodied experience. The body becomes a microcosm in which relational sacredness can be spiritually experienced. The model can now be specified through two complementary modes. Please continue, next slide. In this slide, we can see two modes of transformation. The model distinguishes two complementary modes. First, bound transformations operates through relatively stable structure, such as sacred architecture, epigrammic formulas, institutions, and ritual authority. And free transformation operates through practices that are more adaptable, like devotion, meditation, and embodied spirituality. Their interaction produces layered transformation, symbolically very stable enough to preserve identity, yet practically flexible enough to accommodate changing social and religious contexts. This distinction clarifies why layered transformation is analytically stronger. Next. Why layered transformation is more precise. This comparison clarifies the model's analytical advantage. Syncretism identifies the encounter of elements, but cannot explain persistent differentiation. Parallelism recognizes coexistence, but overlooks ritual interconnection. Coalition explains political alliance, but neglects spiritual interiorization. Layered transformation incorporates relations, materiality, institutions, and embodiment within one framework. It therefore explains change without assuming either doctrinal fusion or isolated coexistence. This model also explains the continuity of these relations in contemporary Bali. Next slide. Here we can see on this slide the contemporary continuities in Bali, that the Śiva-Buddha Legacy remains visible in contemporary Balinese practice, and Śiva-Buddhist priests participate in particular rituals. Holy water circulates across traditional affiliations, and cross-traditional spiritual authority is recognized, yet symbolic differentiation remains intact. These practices show that harmony is not produced by standardizing belief. It is sustained through ritual reciprocity and the practical management of the religious relationship. This continuity leads to the study's wider academic contribution. Next slide, please. The academic contribution, conceptually, it proposed layered transformation as a more precise category. Methodologically, it treats archaeology as a source of theory rather than merely historical illustration. Historiographically, it foregrounds local agency in adapting external influences. And socio-religiously, it offers a relational model of plurality in which differences can remain productive without being dissolved into a single theological system. So I conclude by returning to the central argument, which is the last slide. In this last slide, we see the synthesis. And in conclusion, the Śiva-Buddha case demonstrates that difference not need be dissolved to produce harmony. Material space, ritual institutions, and embodied interiority function as a complementary domains of the sacred, from temple to chakra, therefore names a transformation of relationship, not a disappearance of identity. And this is legacy. And this legacy is not simply an archaeological remnant, it remains a conceptual and cultural resource for understanding adaptive and inclusive religiosity. That all from us. Thank you very much. Om Santi, Santi, Santi. Om Namaste.